The opening session of the conference took a closer look into the host city's recent tall building endeavors and local economics. Chicago has a long history with the skyscraper and is cited as the birthplace of the modern high-rise. The city continues its skyscraper heritage today. An excellent example of this is the recently completed Trump International Hotel and Tower, Chicago. To start the conference off, Eric Trump and Andy Weiss from the Trump Organization presented on the Trump Building, a super tall tower that embodies the latest iconic generation of tall buildings in Chicago.
Trump International Hotel and Tower Chicago represents a decade of development from us, from the first time we saw the piece of land, to the time when we got the plans, to the time where we started building, and now 2 years of hotel management.
Andy Weiss spoke extensively on one of the major components of the Trump project, the implementation of phased occupancy for the building.
Large and super tall buildings are built like any other building. They're built one floor at a time. And when you have a lot of floors, it takes a lot of time. The time is a huge element in terms of financing and economics. And phased occupancy is one of the elements that allowed us to shorten that time by occupying the building on its lower floors before the upper floors were finished. And clearly, I'm sure everyone can visualize the idea. If you're building 90 stories, you may have 30 stories finished at the base of the building while the rest is still continuing. And to have those 30 stories of finished buildings sitting there idle, providing no benefit economically, and using up resources in terms of maintenance and upkeep is a major drag financially on the project. Here are a few photographs of the building under construction. You see on the left side is the foundation being started, then partial building in the middle and further up. By January 2008, well, just to take a step back, first superstructure construction started January 2006. Almost exactly 2 years later, January 2008, we started occupying the hotel portion of the building, basically the first 28 floors. Thereafter, we occupied the rest of the building in phases throughout the rest of 2008 and into the middle of 2009. Completion is just about now. And the last interesting part was the placement of the spire on top of the building, which took a helicopter and a lot of scheduling issues to get it done, and it was exciting and fun.
Another high-profile project that has commenced construction in the city of Chicago was the 2,000-foot Chicago Spire. The engineering firm Thornton Tomasetti served as the engineers of record for the project. And Richard Tomasetti presented on the engineering innovations developed for this landmark tower.
But one of the interesting things is that we have a concrete core, and what was developed was this circular outrigger. This circular outrigger picks up all the columns. By picking up all the columns, we get a almost tube-like behavior where all of the columns on the outside are participating in resisting the wind loads. And it's done in a way, think of it as a sleeve that's tight around the core. And there are no penetrations of the outrigger going through the core.
Tomasetti further explained that to open up the lobby level, a carefully planned transfer system had to be engineered in which the building's 27 columns were reduced to 7 at the base. He also explained the simple way in which the building's twisting form is created.
But the spire is basically a concrete core, steel structure, columns which essentially go straight down. Some are at certain angles, and then the scalloped floor, which also helps in breaking up vortex shedding. The scalloped floor just twists a little bit, a degree or so every floor, and that's how you get the twist. And you can kind of see on this floor plate how each floor is just twisted a little bit.
The building's very large first and second mode periods of about 17 seconds, which are primarily caused by its large height-to-width aspect ratio of 12:1, make the building susceptible to substantial vibration, surprisingly more so at low wind speeds than at higher wind conditions. It thus required a special damping system to be installed.
Another thing that was learned, looking at all the economics and everything, we went to an actuated mass damper, okay, which senses the building movement, senses what's happening, and can move the damper in a variety of ways to handle all the modes just by using one damper.
William Testa from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago presented on the local economic makeup and its evolutions in the city. He argued that Chicago's powerful skyline embodies its place in the world as a global city. Chicago successfully transformed itself from a manufacturing city into an information-based network.
So Chicago, it's become, I think, from the hog butcher of the world, which it once was, the movement of freight, the disassembly of livestock, the manufacturer and stacker of wheat, to a knowledge mecca. All these things that you might learn if I had more time, that we're one of the 3 top convention business meeting places in North America, a tourism center, professional business services, world's great universities, headquarters, and so forth, give rise to what economists call agglomeration economies, just meaning that the sum is more than the parts. The whole is more than the sum of the parts because of co-location, density, and tall buildings being part of that.
Tall buildings in Chicago city center represent the urban density that limits transportation time and makes meetings possible because of proximity and circulation. These are unique characteristics of a concentrated and vibrant downtown commerce and attracts international businesses.
Tallness really allows density, it allows proximity, it allows circulation. Everything on the ground, though, that you do as a great metropolitan area in public policy affects that circulation. Because it allows information exchange, learning, and creativity. That's what cities are about today. And it's an information age despite some setbacks. It's a global age despite some setbacks. And Chicago, I think, has come to understand this. And certainly your organization being here is a great contributor to that.
Developers have found that private financing sources are much more receptive versus chartered banks. Do you have a comment on that?
You know, I would think increasingly that I'm guessing going forward that private financing is probably going to be a better bet or a greater source of financing than the banking sector. At least that's what we see here in the Midwest, but I think in the United States it's somewhat just as pervasive.
I wonder why you were so close to being the tallest building in America for the Trump. Why didn't you go there?
I think Andy can speak a little bit to this. The first meeting we actually had, Trump and Andy Hotel and Tower Chicago was going to be the largest building, the tallest building in the world when we first designed it. And our initial plan for the building came out a week before 9/11. Our subsequent meeting actually happened the morning of 9/11, and I think it was deemed at that time that it might not be the most posh, to use a I guess bad word for it, thing to be the tallest building in the world, especially from a residential standpoint.
And I know Richard's concentrated on the technical aspects of the Spire today, but I just wondered if Richard could give a few insights from the whole project team on the Chicago Spire. Why the Chicago Spire? What were the motivations behind aiming for the tallest building in the U.S.?
I'm not sure it necessarily started that way. I think it just developed that way, and I think it really comes out of the combination of the enthusiasm of Shelbourne and the vision of Santiago Calatrava. And I think if you look at the history of Chicago, okay, there's been a history in Chicago for the 600-plus meter building or the 2,000 foot-high building, all right? There was attempts made towards that with the Miglin-Beitler building. There was another building Harry Weiss was doing many, many years ago that almost got there. So I think it was the culmination of a collective wish that was in this city that fostered that kind of approach to go to this type of height.